Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video I want to talk to you about the points changes to the new Space Marine Codex. Before it even comes out, it's already out of date. That's really funny saying that. So yeah, basically it wasn't really hugely announced, but there was an update yesterday and on the Warhammer community website, and it lists the new points changes to all the armies, but of course Space Marines were the most affected by this because the new codex is coming out and they did a bunch of adjustments for this. So the points are already out of date for the new Space Marine Codex. Oh well, that's where we're going to keep going. It's all about the updated points. You know, we're going to keep going from there. And we're going to keep having fun. That's what I'm going to keep doing. You know, just keep going, rolling with the points costs, and yeah, go from there. So let's summarize the overall. The vast majority of the point changes to the Space Marine Codex were down in points, which is awesome. Only a handful of a few units got increased. Always good to see. There were tons of point changes, but most of the point changes were 5 or 10 point decreases. So yes, so if you have a 2,000 point list a week ago, it would probably be worth about 1,915, 1,910, 1,900, at most maybe, you know, at least 1,890 today. Like depending on how many squads you're taking, but you're going to see most of the models fall within a 5-point decrease, some 10, some a little bit more. But that's about it in a nutshell. So let's go through it. All the points changes and the old and the new, and to summarize, of course, how it affects the army. So we'll start off with Guilliman. The reason why I'm going to start with Guilliman is Guilliman actually had the largest point decrease out of everything. It went from 380 points to 360 points, so it's a 20-point decrease, which is awesome. Guilliman, the rules for Guilliman pretty much stayed very similar to what it did before, and since the decrease in power to Oath of the Moment, he got kind of weaker. So, you know, 20-point decrease, still good. He's still a beast of a model, 360 points. Then there were 5 squads that got 15-point decreases. Those are 5 units, as you're going to see. Tech Marine, which this one's huge. I actually think Tech Marine, and later on when I talk about Scouts, which is in the next group, were the 2 biggest important changes. I really like the Tech Marine, dropped by 15 points. So it went from 70 points to 55 points. That's huge, because once again, one of the detachments is all about Tech Marine and Mech, right? Tech Marines are awesome. So a 15-point decrease, now it's 65 points. Makes it even better. Love it. And then, of course, the Lieutenant, the Ancient in Terminator Armor, the Chaplain in Terminator Armor, the Librarian in Terminator Armor, they all went down from 15 points too. They all went from 90 to 75 points. And so the Lieutenant went from 80 to 65, and then the Ancient Terminator Armor, the Chaplain Terminator Armor, and the Librarian Terminator Armor went from 90 to 75 points. Cool. So once again, all the characters went down 15 points in that group. Nice, makes them cheaper. I love Chaplains. Chaplains are cool too, but they'll be in the next group. It was all about Terminator Armor, really went down by 15 points. But of course, the Tech Marine, to me, is the biggest winner of that grouping of 15-point decreases, because I think the Tech Marine is going to get a lot of usage depending on what detachment you're going to be running. Definitely, for sure. And then we have now the 10-point decreases. And what you're going to see is that the majority of the models fall between a 10-point decrease and a 5-point decrease. That's the vast majority of these changes. There's like 45 units that were changed. Most of them fall between a 5-point decrease and a 10-point decrease. So for the 10-point decreases, we have a Chaplain, went from 70 to 60, the base Chaplain, awesome, right? We have a Librarian, went from 75 to 65. The Chaplain on a jump pack, Chaplain with a jump pack, 85 to 75. The Tigurius went from 85 to 75, which is great. Outriders, this was a great one too, went from 105 for a squad of 3 to 95 points for a squad of 3. Once again, awesome if you want to take there's the Assault Detachment or the White Scars Detachment. Good thing that Outriders got a little bit cheaper. Stern Guard got 10 points cheaper, went from 110 to 100. The ability between versions, they got hit pretty hard, so I don't know if they're as good as they were before, but 10 points cheaper is awesome too. The Storm Speeder, Hailstorm, it went from 140 to 130. the Ballistus Dreadnought, which I think is going to be very frequently used depending on which detachment you're taking as well. I think it hits pretty hard for the guns that it has. And it went from 150 to 140. Invictus Warsuit went from 150 to 140 as well. Storm Speeder Hammer, Storm Speeder Thunder went from Hammer Strike and Thunder Strike went from 160 and to 150 and 170 to 160 respectively. And the Terminator Assault Squad and the Terminator Squad both went down 10 points too. So the Terminator Assault Squad is now 195 for Squad of 5, and the Terminator Squad is now 200 points. No, sorry, I apologize. The Terminator Squad is, the Terminator Assault Squad is 195, and the Terminator Squad, oh, sorry, it's in the next group. Yeah, Terminator Assault Squad only went down by 10. The Redemptor Dread went from 210 to 200 points. So once again, that's cool. The Repulsor Executioner and the Repulsor Executioner also went down 10 points from 210 to 200 points. So 10-point decrease. So once again, great. You know what? Things got cheaper slightly. If you have as I said, if you have a 2,000 point list, it dropped 10 points for every unit I just mentioned in that group, right? So now you're running at like 1880, or it'll basically give enough for one more unit, for what I'm seeing between the lists. But the next group is huge. So, as I mentioned, there are a lot of units in the -5 category. So we got a 5-point decrease between versions. The Blade Guard Ancient went from 50 points to 45. Cool if you want to run them. I've tried him out a couple times, he's fun. The Ancient went from 55 to 50. Apothecaries went from 55 to 50. And Lieutenant Phobos Armor, Lieutenant Reaver Armor, both went from 60 to 55. The Justiciar and the Librarian Phobos Armor went from 75 to 70. The Chaplain on a Bike went from 80 to 75. That's a unit I love. I can't wait to run that in my bikes detachments. You know, it's very cool, so it got cheaper. Impulsor, 85 to 80. Cantor went from 95 to 90. The Razorback went from 100 to 95. Lysander and Shrike went from 105 to 100. Once again, they hit hard. I mentioned in a previous video, I don't see a lot of the main Space Marine chapters being taken in this edition. I see a lot of the other chapters, the Divergent chapters, I think will be more powerful, but even still, a 5-point decrease. Lysander hits just as hard as he did before. Awesome. And so does Cantor. Razorbacks got, Inceptors went from 115 to 110. Whirlwinds 150 to 145. Terminators 190 to 185. So they're still 10 points cheaper than the Assault Squad, but they only went down by 5 points versus the Assault. Terminators went down by 10. And Repulsors are 190 now from 195, so 5-point decrease. Aggressors, and that's right, that's it for the decreases. So as you see, most of the models went either 10-point decrease or 5-point decreases. Between those two, I think I mentioned Scouts in my previous one, but Scouts to me went down 10 points. They're now 55 points a squad, which is phenomenal. I think Scouts are going to be a cheap unit that you're going to place on objectives. They have new models eventually going to be coming out. They look awesome. I'm going to use my old models in the meantime, but I really do think Scouts are going to be mainstay. I think Scouts really won with these upgrades, and so did Tech Marines. I think they did too. But now we're in the units that either have increases, or I actually didn't know the previous ones, to be honest. The Assault Intercessors and Jump Packs are now 85 points. The Captain on a Jump Pack is worth 85, and the Company Heroes are 95. To be honest, I haven't seen the new Codex for points, so I don't know what they cost before, to be transparent. And then we get to the increases. There were only two squads or models that increased in cost. The Aggressors, because the Aggressors are going to be a hitting hard unit in this edition with the detachments, especially the ones that make all your guns assault. It's going to be pretty nasty. They went from 100 to 110 points. Obviously, that's why, because they are going to be hitting harder than ever before, right? Yeah, that's crazy, right? They're going to be hitting really hard. And then Vulcan went from 80 points to 100 points. So we went up 20 points, 25% increase. I guess they see a lot of synergy with Vulcan and the Salamanders, and once again, it brings him more in line with Lysander, with Shrike, with all the other characters that are the special character for each of the main detachments. It brings them all in line about the same points. But that's it. Those are all the point increases. I got this in a 10-minute video, and but as you saw, there were a bunch of point increases, decreases. So what I saw, again, most things got cheaper. If you're running a 2,000 point list before, again, depending on what list, I've looked at a couple competitive lists, and they dropped to low 1900s, high 1800s, depending on how many units you were taking. Aggressors were frequently taken in some of these lists, so they increased in cost versus, if you're running chaplains on bikes with outriders, it got cheaper in combination with both of them. Guilliman went down 20 points, so if you're running Guilliman before, 20 points more that you can do stuff with. I love the new Tech Marine costs, that's awesome. I think he's going to be a frequently used model. I love the new Scouts costs. They're going to be dirt cheap for what they do. You stick them on an objective in some, hidden area, or if it's in terrain, hopefully they stay alive. 55 points, that's awesome for an objective sitter. I love it. Most of the characters went down 5 or 10 points. Makes it awesome. There's always going to be synergy with them in the squads. It just depends on which character you really wanted to take. I was really hoping that the Apothecary Biologist would go down. It didn't. The Chaplain on Bike did. I love him. Chaplains in general. All the Chaplains went down in cost. All the Librarians went down in cost. The Lieutenants went down in cost. Awesome. I don't think I'm going to take a lot of Lieutenants, to be honest, but Chaplains and Librarians, they hit hard, right? Psychic powers, and Chaplains make every squad better that they're attached to. Yeah. So what do you think? It's really weird talking about the points changes before the Codex comes out tomorrow, or on the weekend, but even still, now you're up to date with all the point changes. Sorry for rattling them off really fast, but it's just a bunch of models that have to be going through point changes. But as you saw, most of them were 5 or 10 points, so small changes overall to the army. But it makes everything more competitive, right? Cheaper models gives you more points, an extra unit. It'll probably increase your army you can bring by an extra unit or 2, which makes it awesome. Maybe a couple of units of scouts. So stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to keep updating you guys every time there's point changes, and we'll keep going from there. So please like the video, comment in the comment section down below, and subscribe to my channel if you already haven't done so. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting.